right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome one and welcome all inside High and Tight, the flagship show, part of the IA Baseball Network. Thanks for joining along, and thanks for tuning in to our weekly show covering everything baseball in the state of Iowa, from high school to the professional ranks and more. And of course, brought to you by the great folks at Victory Mounds. Check out Victory Mounds today. Craig Allison and the gang do a perfect and fantastic job of getting you ready from portable pitching mounds, field products, and field services trusted by both coaches and players alike. It's simple. It's easy. They know what to look for. Mike Donahoe is in charge of products and equipment. Make sure it's nothing short of premium quality. So go ahead and check them out today. Just hit them up at victorymounds.com. Fun show in store for you today as we are in studio once again, and I appreciate everything. Brought to you by, again, the great folks at Insolites and Insolites.com here. And instead of going to the phone lines, we're going to have a really fun show in store with the one and only Ross Petersen of KXNO joining us here to talk about really all things baseball. Kind of a casual, cool conversation. Can't wait to get to it. And with that, Ross, appreciate you coming along for the ride here.
Thank you for having me. Dude, this is my first time. Excuse me. This is my first time being in studio. I'm a huge fan of you. I'm a huge fan of Tony Hager and the IA Wrestle team. So awesome to be here in studio, man. I'm a little bit kind of like I love it. This is feels cool. I forgot we were on camera even until you started talking. I'm like, oh, I should probably look up at the camera from time to time.
Yeah. Well, it is that kind of a cozy feel. Also, that just moved in feel. Got a lot of stuff around here.
Well, I'll apologize to anybody that's watching because, and this is going to sound creepy, but I'm an eye contact guy, and so I will spend most of my time talking to you and listening to you and looking your direction. So I apologize for people that are, because you're going to have to look at my profile, and I get it. I get it. So anyway, I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me, man. How have you been?
Good. Yeah. Pretty good. Really love joining on this platform. Again, Tony's a fantastic guy, and getting in touch with him was one of the greatest things that's happened to me, and of course, in baseball world. And so it's been just kind of take off from there, and it's been fun. Good
for you, man. It's fun to see. We're still Facebook friends, and I follow you on Twitter, so I get to kind of live, I guess, vicariously through your, through those mediums of what you've been doing. So it's fun to see, and I'm happy to be here and chat. Dude, when I say anything baseball, we can talk about Aaron Judge and being a captain. We could talk about Carlos Correa failing a physical. We could talk about T-ball in Siberia. I don't care. We can talk anything baseball. I'm happy to do it.
Well, let's get to it. I mean, I really, this is why I want to have you on for these kind of conversations at the broader spectrum of things. And we'll get to a lot of MLB stuff here. But one of the things that I have always loved is just how the sport of baseball can be kind of passed down generation wise, and from father to son. Of course, you being a father, and you being in baseball for a while, when I first met you, we could easily pick up on any baseball conversation. And I know a lot of people know you, but man, you kind of grew up baseball. Baseball was you.
People that have known me my whole life, and I've been in Polk County my entire life, and so people that know me, that's probably what they would associate me with before anything is just baseball in general. Mm-hmm. And it's ironic that you bring up the father-son relationship, because my dad is the reason for that. My dad was, so many things in my life are because of the sport of baseball. So my dad started his family when he married my mom and had my older brother and older sister. They lived in Burlington, Iowa. Mm-hmm. My dad worked for UPS, and he was getting transferred here to Central Iowa to work in Ames. But his friend that he worked with in Ames, that he was going to work with, lived in Pleasant Hill and was a part of the baseball, the Little League in Pleasant Hill. And my dad loved baseball. So from the minute my dad moved to Pleasant Hill, my mom and dad and my brother and sister, we lived across the street from Pleasant Hill Little League. Yeah. And my dad was involved with the league from the minute I was born. The day I was born, there was a banner on the concession stand at the Little League that welcomed me to the world. Uh-huh. And I grew up in that park. And My house, or literally across the street from the ballpark, and my bedroom was on the top floor of a 2-story home. The lights and the sounds of the baseball field literally flooded my bedroom. I would go to sleep to the sound of the bat cracking and the crowd cheering.
Yeah.
That little league, that small town little league sound of, you can hear the umpire and you can hear parents cheering for their kids, and you when a big play happens, you can almost envision the game. You and I used to talk, and I can wax about baseball. I love it. And this is why, because as a kid, I fell asleep every summer night with the windows open and listening to the sound of that. And I would just envision the game as I was hearing the sounds. I could hear the pop of the gloves, all of it. And that was just every night. And my friends and I played double or nothing, and we invented baseball games, and my dad yelled at us for playing too much baseball in the front yard and not enough baseball in the park across the street. He'd yell at me, "I bought a house across the street from a park, and you play baseball in my yard." My friends and I played a game called Red Ball, which was a tiny Nerf ball. But you could make this thing dance.
Oh, kind of like a wiffle ball.
A lot like those wiffle balls. And now my son plays this thing called I'm going to butcher the name of it, but it's a green ball.
Okay.
And it has tiny little shapes on it, so it's kind of like a wiffle ball in a way.
Yeah.
And same thing. You can just make this thing dance on the way to the plate. So baseball was so ingrained, man, in my life, and it got me into being a baseball player. Got me into radio in a weird way. Yeah. My first job in broadcasting at all was to be a mobile DJ. So I would go around and like DJ weddings and dances and stuff. And the guy that set my jobs up for me was a guy by the name of Jeff Blanchard. And he had been a baseball player in Wisconsin. He had pitched for his team in the state finals, and he and I would geek out about baseball every day.
Nice.
Now, where I would go to meet Jeff and have these conversations was at the 1350 radio station at where now ESPN Radio here in Des Moines. But at the time, it was just KRNT, and they carried the Cubs games even then.
Yep.
They also had 900, which was called Talk 900, KXTK. They broadcast the Iowa Cubs games.
Oh, that's right.
One of the guys heard me talking baseball with Jeff.
Yeah.
And came over and said, "Hey, we need somebody that loves baseball enough to sit here all summer and listen to baseball games and basically watch the computer." Now on 1350, they were still running a patch system, so it was a little bit more involved. Yep. But for Talk 900 and the Iowa Cubs games, it was pretty much already automated. But they needed somebody that was a geek, that would sit there and listen to baseball and would pay attention and kind of knew. And it fit all of my things. I mean, I was salivating. I heard them say I was going to get paid to listen to the Cubs.
Oh yeah, who wouldn't like that?
And then that opportunity then opened the door for me to sit with a guy named Cal Bierman and learn how to make radio commercials, and sit with the sales team and learn how radio sales worked, and watch Dick Youngs and Maxwell Schaefer and all of these radio people. And I just kind of started to pick up on all these little tools and tricks, and then the world opened up for me in the way it has. And now I talk about sports on the radio in the community that I grew up in. So, I mean, really, without baseball, none of that would have happened. Yeah. So I love it.
Well, and I love that story. I love the originality of it. I love the genuineness of it. And obviously that's something that that's the way you want it. That's a picture perfect. That's what grows everything. And one of the things too is, for me, I just becoming a dad 4 years ago myself, it was something where you don't know until you know, one of those phrases. And I have yet to get into my kids playing anything competitive. One just started. But for you've been able to see your kids kind of get to that point with different sports. Yeah. And I know baseball has been one of those. What kind of a 360 feeling was that like, going from, your time and now you're getting to see it through a different lens?
Andrew, the changes that have happened in youth sports.
Oh gosh.
It is such a completely different world than I remember it. And I've again, I'm going to make a long story out of this again, but because my dad was so involved with Pleasant Hill Little League, I got involved with the league at a very young age. So I was a board member on the Little League when I was 18. I didn't go to college. So I was working from staying with my mom and dad, who still lived across the street from the park.
Yeah.
So the new president relied on me for some stuff, and I would be a coach and I would be a board member. I tell you that story only because to tell you, I got to see the underbelly 25 years ago. All right. And so there's always been a gross side of youth sports, and not the money side. That's new, and we'll kind of get to that, I think. There's always been this thing where adults care way too much about youth sports, okay? I won't use any names except for the ones that deserve some good credit in this, but we had a young man that was playing at that time in Pleasant Hill that was a fantastic athlete. He was a special athlete. And his dad was very much about his son getting the best opportunities and playing against the absolute best competition. And now, and I don't fault that dad in this story, because as a dad, I want the same thing for my kids.
Want that
I
exact
see
same
that.
thing.
But this was a Little League, okay? So there was a big debate about what to do with this young man. Do we play him up and play him on the big field with the kids that we know he can not only compete against, but probably dominate, and he doesn't, and he's younger than them by years? Or do we keep him with the group he's supposed to play with and potentially hold him back? And I mean, quite literally hold him back in this sense. The dad was pushing for him to go forward. The people in the board split into factions. I don't even remember which side I was on. Here's how the story ended. The debate was kind of happening full force at what was cleanup day at the ballpark. The dad was up there arguing. Some other adults were kind of screaming and yelling. And the president of the league, a guy by the name of Jeff Lampkin, looked at me and said, "Hey, Ross, will you go do me a favor? Do you have a glove?" And I said, "Yep." And he said, "Will you go outside and play catch with this young man and ask him what he wants to do?" And I went outside and took a ball and I started playing with this kid, and we kind of talked. We talked about school, talked about some of the kids I was coaching that he knew. And then I said, "Hey, man, if you could decide this year if you wanted to play over on the big field with the big guys or play here on this field, which one?" And he said, "Oh, I want to play with my friends." That's it. Okay. So, and that was the decision that was made, and he played down with the kids, and he ended up having an awesome high school career. It didn't hold him back a bit.
Well, that's good.
So that thing of adults always caring too much has always existed. Always. And again, not that dad cared too much. It was the other adults. It was the coaches that wanted to win a 13-year-old county championship. They weren't cared about what the kid wanted. They were using the dad as the excuse, but they cared too much about their priorities were just wrong. Now, that still exists. But now we've added money in, and now you've added layers to it with USSSA, and that has compounded, or maybe compounded might be the wrong. I think it's the right word, but it shined a light onto that gross underbelly of youth sports. And now we all kind of see it, and I think everybody sees it, but and baseball's being affected by it. So
well, one thing whatever sport too. I mean, you use sports, you see it over there. I mean, when I was covering for the Dallas County newspaper, I'd see it, especially in basketball, wrestling. You get a lot of that. Baseball really did as well, but it does seem like people try and live vicariously. But one thing I've started to notice here more, Ross, and to get your take, is that those who were once athletes, those who were once, played at the highest level, a couple guys, Brett White of Sloan, I know he come from a good pedigree, guys that have come from baseball backgrounds, their father's just like, you know what, I let him do what he wanted. And, meanwhile,
I could have finished. I knew what you were going to say there. I knew, because I would agree, Andrew, every every successful baseball player, every guy I know that played at the professional level, and I know a handful of guys. My buddy Jeff Lanning is a realtor with me at Charter House. He's Joel Lanning's brother. A lot of people would be more familiar with his name. He's Joel's older brother. And Jeff was an amazing athlete. He was a fantastic running back and a fantastic wrestler. But baseball was his passion and his love, and he got drafted and played professionally for several years. My friend Mark Hanrahan, again, his brother Joel.
Yeah.
Two guys with brothers Joel that are more famous. But Mark, again, a guy that played professionally and played Division I baseball and was a fantastic baseball player. My friend Andy Woodley, he's the guy that taught me the lessons of being a center field parent. That you got to let the coaches have volunteered their time. Let the coaches coach. If you're there, your kid's always going to be looking for you. Your kid's always going to be acting like their parent is there. You don't want that. You want your kid to learn independence from sports, and they can't learn independence when you're constantly there looking over the top of them. So, I could have finished that as soon as you said the best baseball players I know, the best athletes I know.
Yep.
They understand a couple of things, Andrew. Number one, winning a 9U ring means nothing in 5 to 6 years.
Yep.
It's great for the kids. And that we can have that conversation too about how USSSA has an awesome side. It gets crapped on a lot. These kids are competing and loving it, and it is so much fun to be there and see kids that are amazing baseball players at 9, 10, 11, 12 years old competing against each other, and they all understand what they're playing for. You're going to learn soon. You have about 4, 5, and 6, those 3 years where you can do the participation trophy thing, okay? Your son and your daughter at about 6 years old or 7 years old, and maybe that second or third year of competition, and by competition, I mean you're playing bam ball and doing the fun stuff, they're going to start to pick up the difference between winning and losing. Now, whether it's society that does it, you will not be able to keep it from them. It's not something you're going to teach them. They're going to walk away from a game someday before it will shock you how soon and say, Dad, did we win? Or you're going to walk away with that participation trophy, and this is one of the things I experienced where they'll look around and they'll say, Dad, did everybody get the same thing? Is there anything I could have done to have stood out among the crowd? We all want to do that. At a young age. So that's what the people that have succeeded at those levels, they've got that perspective of knowing this doesn't determine anything for the future. If my kid has goals, I mean, at that age, man, my kid wanted to be a wizard. The
son is mine right now.
So what are you doing by paying for privatized lessons and something that you might not know that they like? I was chatting with Tony before we came on about my son, who's 12 now. He wrestled when he was 9 or 10, one of those years. Wanted to wrestle. So we signed him up. My best friend is a wrestling coach. And so we watch a lot of wrestling. He's like, I want to do that. He did it 1 year and said, this isn't for me. Okay. That's okay. We gave the shoes to somebody, gave the headgear to somebody. And now at 12 in 7th grade, he came home from school and said, hey, Dad, I think I'm going to wrestle this year. Cool.
Now
we're going to wrestle again. And we dove in and we got the singlet and we got the shoes and we got the headgear, and he wrestled this year and he loved it. Now, again, I'm not sitting at home. We don't have a wrestling mat in the basement. It's just the passion that he has found. And I'm going to feed whatever one of those things it is. I'm no athlete. I was no athlete at all, man. I loved baseball. I couldn't see anything. I was just not a good athlete at all. I wasn't very big. Surprise, surprise. And I just don't. I expect that my son is going to have some of those same genetic hurdles to get over. So my expectation for him is to have fun, and I'm going to feed whatever he wants to enjoy. But it's because I've been lucky enough to be around those people that you have also been around that have given me that perspective of it's fun. It's not important. Exactly.
And I go back to too as well. I know Steve Dreyer, who's bothered with Jack Dreyer, who's father Jack Dreyer, and and him talking about it. He goes, I up until too long, I didn't know if he would go that route or a certain route, and think
about that pedigree,
like what that's like and how that's gotten there. And I know growing up, I would sometimes think about look at a teammate of mine, and his dad would be on him, and focusing, pushing him to do more laps after a game, and my dad goes. I looked at my dad one day and like, well, why don't you push me like that? And he goes, there's more to it than that. There's far more. And, you're not going to get burnt out at 7th grade, 8th grade. You're not going to get burnt out then. Yep. And I think that was one of the things that I saw a lot is that kids got burnt out, and especially with Iowa high school baseball in the summer, do you want to get burnt out in the summer or do you want to enjoy the summer? I think that also had a little bit of flair to that.
You're absolutely right. And the long-term effects of this, we could probably start to do a study about USSSA involvement. Mm-hmm. How many of those kids actually kind of burn out, I think, we might be shocked. We might be shocked in both ways, in either way, of that not very many of them actually burn out, or an incredible amount of them burn out, or there's a number of shoulder surgeries that happen.
Yeah,
who knows? But the USSSA thing has added a dynamic to youth sports that is interesting, certainly.
Yeah, and one of the things too, again with that, just a lot to focus on. I know for me anyway, my son started up. This was his first year of T-ball, and at first it was kind of one of those, and I wanted to get your take on too when you first saw that, because I told myself I'm not going to be the guy that gets real into it, but when your son steals third crawling, then I start to go, like,
get off your knees,
get off your knee, and then I look around, and you're trying. If the saying, if you don't see a crazy person in the room, it's probably
you're the crazy one. Yeah.
And then I found myself going through this roller coaster as I went through, like, okay, I'm too much. I'm not enough. I'm too much, trying to inspire him at age 4. And like you're talking about, it just, there's a time and place for things, but I found myself going a little crazy there. I go, well, how do I kind of handle the early stages? And my dad had said once, just let him be.
Andrew, I did the exact same thing.
Good. Okay? I'm not the only one here.
No.
Okay. It's good.
You got to go over the edge to find out where the edge is, right? You got to lose control to find out where you're. That's an old racing thing. Here's a go-kart trick. Okay. Next time you go go-kart racing, first thing you should do when you get out on the track, first thing is you should try to spin that thing out. You know why? That's how you find out what the thing can do.
Yep.
You got to lose control to find out where your limits are. Okay.
Yep.
And that's just a good rule. And we've all done it. That sport, wrestling, it does it in spades to people. You've never seen crazy parents until you've been at a wrestling meet.
That is true.
But that is, so what you did there, Andrew, as you were telling that story, I'm having this flashback to a basketball game where Eli was inbounding the ball, and he couldn't inbound the ball, and so he faked throwing the ball right into the kid's face. And of course, like any 6-year-old, the other kid cowered back, and Eli passed it in, and all of his friends laughed and thought it was hilarious. And I saw it as a bullying. I saw my kid as the bully. Yep. And I almost walked out onto the court, and I was like, you kid, you don't do that. And I remember stopping and going, oh, same thing. The same exact thing. I'm looking around going, oh, I'm the crazy one. Oh, I'm going to back up. Homer Simpson into the bush thing, You trying to just fade into the crowd again. So, yeah, we've all been there, buddy. And I promise you that is doing that when they're 4. And you probably even had this thing of like, oh, my God, if I did that when he's 4. What am I going to be doing when he's 11?
I had that exact thought.
I promise you, the fact that you're conscious of it, and that means you're going to be just fine. Good. You're going to be just fine. Now, I mean, there is a point for a parent, right? Yep. There's a point for a parent in a youth youth event. You don't want your kid acting like a little jerk.
Yeah.
And you want your child to know there are consequences when you don't listen to authority figures and all of these rules and lessons that were taught by sports. So you're still going to be conscious of all those things. What you want to do, Andrew, if I could give you one piece of advice, it is, and this is the most common piece of advice, and it's the reason that you hear it the most. Don't critique their play after the game. And it's really easy to go, hey, man, remember when you were on second and that situation happened? You know what you were supposed to do there? Because you're a baseball guy. You know all the ins and outs. You've been in that situation. You want to do that. That's not the time.
Yeah.
The best thing, and you've heard this a million times, is just to say, hey, man, I want to tell you how proud I am of you and how much I love watching you play. Yeah. It's so much fun to watch you out there having fun.
Yeah.
Well, Dad, we got our butts kicked today. I got my butt kicked at this field a bunch of times. Or in wrestling, I got pinned, and I say, yeah, you know what, Eli? Like 80% of the guys here got pinned today. You're in a big group. You're in a big line of people, of guys that nobody remembers. Don't be embarrassed because everybody else is thinking everybody saw me get pinned today.
Yeah.
And that's the thing in baseball is just when the game is over, hey man, good game.
Yeah.
Dad, I went 0 for 4 with 6 errors. It looked like you're having fun.
Yeah.
You know what? There's the next game, right? I bet next game you get a couple hits and don't make 6 errors.
Yeah.
Because they're going to put you in left field. You won't get the ball hit to you 6 times.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Oh, man. Again, everybody, Ross Petersen here joining us here.
I told you I was going to forget the camera was
we got to the camera here. We're going to – I'm finding myself looking straight. Okay. I mean, the eye contact thing, I get that. Sometimes I'm the only one here, and I have to stare at the camera.
Yeah, talking to the camera.
Yeah. I think I'm crazy sometimes, just staring at a camera. Sometimes. My wife said, let's up that level there a bit. You're a little beyond that. But one of the things that was a really cool story and about positivity with dads in the sport of baseball. And I was lucky enough to go to Sioux City and catch Dwyer Brown. And he talked about the tale of losing his dad 30 days before the film. And it's
incredible.
The fact that he said he could have just said no to that, and they didn't know how well it would be. The studio didn't know if they would even put it out there. And he goes, Dad had set, the inspiration in me for so long, and now I got up there and I did it, and it was such a massive hit. And I think, I look back and go like, that's what I want to be. I want to be the guy that even when I'm gone can inspire a kid to go and do something. And so I hope I can get that. But yeah, I like your point. It's just, to play fun, inspire at this age.
That's it. Have fun. Yeah. Find out what's going to move your needle, man, and trip your trigger. When I was in high school, I joined the debate team.
Yeah.
And all of my friends on the baseball team and all of my friends that and every other sport I played were like, dude, you're on the debate team. It was the most fun thing I did in high school. But I mean, by a factor of 2 or 3, it was my favorite thing in high school. And with what I do today, it was the thing that I learned the most and took the most from. Mm-hmm. I never used Spanish. Never. And
I haven't either.
And I haven't used baseball in long enough. You know what I mean? The actual skills of baseball. So, and then I had this fun distinction. In high school, I was the best debater on the baseball team, and I was the best baseball player on the debate team.
Yeah.
So nobody else could claim those things.
Yeah, that's your title.
But the point is, do things that you don't think you'll like, because you'll be amazed at what you like. You'll be amazed.
Well, and I can't wait. I can't wait to go through all that too. And we got Susan Casper saying hi, Ross.
Oh, Susan!
Yeah, saying hi there. Of course, if you have any comments or questions, hit us up. Again, we usually love that. But to kind of wrap up the youth side of things here, I got the chance to talk with Clayton Bolkema of Davenport North, Clayton Campadilli. Both went to the Power Showcase. They do it the high schoolers in Miami. And basically a home run derby for youth. I've gotten a lot of mixed on that actually. When not about the interview, but just in talking, off air about it. Some people say, we don't need that at this age. We don't need those who are still developing their swing to hit for the fences, or, why are you covering, 9, why are you ranking freshmen, or, why are you doing that? And, I get their thought, you've seen the stages here. I guess I was kind of born into all this already, when I grew up, we were already into this, and I knew of travel teams and AAU and USSSA, and I never thought of it as we're doing too much to the younger kids, and but at the same time, I kind of step back and look at it and go, okay, I can see that, but the recognition these guys are getting, 4 days after Clayton Bolkema signed or committed with Texas baseball. And I go like, that's gotta be something in there with that, like you get the opportunities, and if you're good enough, and these guys do it the right way, Ross. I mean, they're
Andrew, how do the kids feel about it?
Fantastic.
They love it.
They love it.
What you just described there, what you're doing is exactly what my friends and I pretended existed. Like we would do these things in our imagination because there wasn't anybody that was actually doing it. There wasn't anybody that was,
everyone wants to feel like they are in an MLB stadium in Pleasant Hill, Pleasant Valley,
It's such a cool thing that happens, right? Yeah. And then the kids get to participate in it, and even the kids that lose are bragging about the fact that they participated in it.
Yeah.
You're never going to do something and not get criticism for it. Like anything that you do, and I mean, we can talk about how there is corruption in youth sports, and there is abuse in money, and there's too much money and all this. Highlighting some kids, giving the kids an opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, again,
I wish I had that.
You're talking about ranking freshmen. If you think that stuff wasn't happening in behind closed doors in the early 80s when there, you're nuts. You're nuts that these guys, that these guys weren't getting together and going, okay, how good is he?
Yeah.
Let's find, and that's, man, this reminds me of a Richard Petty line. And it just speaks to the competitiveness of man, not men, just human beings.
Yep.
He says, there's a lot of question about when a lot of sports started. There's no question about when auto racing started.
Mm-hmm.
It was the second car came off the line. And that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
The minute they had two cars, the two guys looked at each other and said, "Want to race?
Let's do it.
Want to race?" But that speaks to the competitive nature of men and just human beings, I think.
Yeah.
So, dude, don't feel bad at all when you do that stuff. We love finding stuff to complain about.
We sure do. Humanity loves that.
Yeah, can't be happy.
Can't have nice things. But yeah, I just found that interesting, and it just doesn't, the kids, kids love it. That's what we do that for, and talking with Tony, in IA Sports and what he started, he goes, hey, if you're not in this for the right reasons, just, respectfully bow out now. This isn't for you. We're highlighting these kids because honestly, at Iowa, especially from wrestling side, basketball side, baseball side, I mean, there's so much talent here, and
growing every day.
Right.
The number when you and I were working together at KXNO, even 5 to 10 years ago, to have 20 Division I athletes, that would have been a remarkable year. We would have. I remember standing in the KXNO studios like, wow, 17 Iowa kids are going to go play Division I football next year. That's incredible. Dowling has 17 now, right? I mean,
turns them out.
Right. So what has grown here, and again, that's all part of the youth sports thing.
Yeah.
The talent pool that we've seen grow is because we're getting kids into things much earlier, and we're getting them competitive. We're getting them involved with the most competitive kids. All of that stuff that we were talking about that dad wanted for his kid 25 years ago. Those things still exist, and that's in even more now.
Again, I think it's a good time. I think that again, with whether I talked to Coach London, it's still a good time to be there. Even with analytics, there's a good time and the right way to do things, the right way to go about it. I think that at this point, obviously gauge the kids, right? But
that's why my first question to you: how do the kids feel about it?
Yeah.
If you said, the kid, they kind of give a mixed reaction, I'd say, well, maybe you should reconsider this.
Yeah. All about the fun at this point.
You lit up. Your eyes lit up. You said they love it. Then do it. Then do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. And again, I love these conversations, and that's what we do it for. And whether from us, KXNO, and all that, it's just fun to do it, and I really appreciate everyone out there to give that support. But speaking about fun, again, let's pivot here.
You're fine.
And let's go a little bit into let's go to the professional ranks here with this. And first thing I wanted to start off with is, a couple weeks, right around Hall of Fame time, you're getting that announcement of who might be in, what's the ballot looking like. And I can't believe I've never really talked about this with you, and I've wanted to for so long about this. It's just solely because I haven't asked you in so long. I know this is just kind of like forced and out there.
It's all right.
But, talking about Hall of Famers and who shouldn't be in there. And I have been, I've been lucky enough to have conversations with varying degrees of people. One that say, if you did anything wrong, you can't be in here. The Joe Morgans, we can't taint the hall and stuff like that, and I did want to get your take before we go any further on Pete Rose, because for the longest time I've had and everybody here knows on this, on IA Baseball knows where I stand with that. But I kind of want to get your take on this, and because I find it interesting that we go ahead and condemn a player, a former player, for, like with Pete Rose, and a guy who had no wrongdoings as a player necessarily. As a coach, a lot of questionable things, right? But as a player, there was nothing wrong. I mean, is it just that blanket? We can't have that. I mean, what are your thoughts, one, on his status, and can we compartmentalize that kind of stuff?
Okay. The answer to the compartmentalization is absolutely we can, and I think that's the right way to get to the answer that we have to have here, okay? Okay, and of all the guys that we could talk about, Clemens, Bonds...
we'll get to that.
And Pete's the easiest one for me to answer.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll understand why, and just because I think Pete Rose, it's an easy one. Mm-hmm. Put these guys in the Hall of Fame.
All right.
Put their busts. Pete Rose is the easiest. You put Pete Rose's bust in the Hall of Fame. You put on the plaque.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie Hustle. This guy had more base hits than any human being that ever played the game
and forever will, in my estimation.
You list the series of accolades that Pete Rose had as a player. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the same plaque, you say Pete Rose was a manager for the Cincinnati Reds. He gambled on baseball. He broke one of the cardinal rules, if not the cardinal rule, for nearly 100 years in baseball. He broke that rule. And because of that, he was never allowed to be he was banned from Major League Baseball. It can say that on the plaque. You could tell the whole story in one paragraph.
Yeah.
And then his bust is there, and you've recognized all of it. And that seems to me to be the easiest one. And I think it's obvious what I'm saying here is because with Clemens and Bonds, we don't have an admission of guilt. We don't have a guilty test. We have the O.J. Simpson thing, right? Where we all stand around and go, guilty, guilty. You can't put that in bronze.
Yeah.
You can't. So they're tougher for me. Do those guys belong in the Hall of Fame for what they did on the baseball field? There is no doubt about it. Nobody questions that. Why they're held out of the Hall of Fame is because of the steroid thing, and Pete because of the gambling thing. The Pete Rose thing is a little bit more is more complex than I brushed through there, because I didn't really know how to feel about Pete for a long time, and then I talked to Turk Wendell. Now, I'm not sure if you had a chance. Have you talked to Turk on this podcast yet?
Yeah, I have not. I got to get him.
I will try to put you in contact with him. He's the real deal, man.
Sounds like it, yeah.
He's such a fascinating human being. And Turk explained to me that he's the first guy I really had an intimate conversation with about Pete Rose that had played Major League Baseball.
Yep.
Okay. And his take on it was, you absolutely cannot allow Pete Rose into the Hall of Fame. That this is such an obvious rule that he broke. Everybody knows. This is not, they didn't start this after Pete Rose got busted.
Yep.
No, from the 1900s until today, they tell every major leaguer at the beginning of every season, you cannot be involved with anything that looks like this. Okay? So he knew.
Yeah.
And again, we're talking about Pete Rose as a manager after a 20-plus year career. So that means almost 30 times he'd sat through that lecture and nodded in agreement and said, yeah, I get it. Don't gamble. Don't gamble. And then he went out there and he did it. And not only did he do it, but I used to fall for that argument of like, well, he never gambled, he never bet against his team.
Yeah.
Well,
but there's more to that.
There is more to that, especially in baseball. Because if I gamble for my team to win on a Tuesday night, I'm going to do everything I can to win that game on Tuesday. Wednesday be damned.
Yeah. Yeah.
So did he ever gamble on his team to lose? No. Did they lose games because Pete Rose was betting on baseball? Very possibly.
Yeah.
Very possibly. And so the Pete one is complex but simple. The story is complex.
Yeah.
I think that you tell all of that on the bronze and on his plaque, but it's such a joke. And the more of these that pile up, you got 3 right now. The more of these that pile up, and maybe we're done. When I say pile up, it's 3 people. Maybe that'll be it. But what a joke that those 3 people, 3 of the greatest producers in the history of the game, statistically. And by the way, the Hall of Fame should be more than just statistics. It should be about fame.
It's the Hall of Fame.
And these guys were so famous.
Yeah.
So famous. So, and again, for parts of their careers and lives, infamous, but they should absolutely be in the Hall of Fame, and we should tell the whole story. And again, for Clemens and Bonds, maybe you put on there that they were implicated in the steroid scandal that tarnished baseball for decades. And that's a very fair statement right now to say for decades. I mean, like a guy like Derek Jeter, who I love dearly, as a Yankee fan, the number of times that I've had to have people go, Jeter was probably on roids. What? Yeah, because of all those bombs he was dropping.
Yeah.
Like what? But then as a Yankee fan, if somebody mentions David Ortiz, I'm the first one to go, him and Manny.
Yeah.
So we all get tribalism and we paint everybody for decades with that brush. So
yeah. Well, and I'm with you. I'm with you there all the way, because I've felt this way for a long time. It is the Hall of Fame, not the Hall of Numbers, or that's why Jack Morris I've been a huge fan of. How many iconic games was he a part of in the postseason? And I feel like Major League Baseball continually gives themselves a black eye when they don't allow the career hits leader, ERA leader, and home runs leader into the Hall of Fame.
I think that does Roger Clemens have the most Cy Youngs of any pitcher ever?
I believe. I didn't want to say. I don't want to go out and say that for sure, but I believe he does. And that guy's
accolades are stacked up.
Yeah,
I mean,
why? He's always going to be remembered. You can't write history during that time period without him.
Man, Piazza.
Oh my gosh,
the bat. And
as Braves fan, I can even appreciate that.
Yeah, right. For me, I'm old enough to remember Clemens with the Red Sox and remember that the Buckner World Series when they lost to the Mets. And I didn't like Roger Clemens. Even when he was a Yankee, there have been a handful of Yankees in my life I didn't like. I never liked A-Rod, never liked Clemens, never liked Wade Boggs as a Yankee.
Yeah.
Came around to not liking Aroldis Chapman after we found out about what a person he was. So anyway, that kind of sucks when you have a guy on your team you don't like. But
yeah, it kind of let down a lot of people, once he got to that point, and then he could have been like the next, the kind of course Mariano Rivera is the guy that has always been enshrined in that spot, and then you have him coming up there, and Mariano Rivera is just the salt of the earth guy, and then the guy that replaces him is,
as far as we know.
Well, as far as we know,
and that's no pedestals. Okay, and
yeah,
no pedestals. I've learned that.
I'm trying.
I've been burned so many times.
Yeah, I get into that way too much, but
it happens. Anyway, so that's that's my take on Pete and Roger and Bonds. Is they should all be in. Their stories should be told. Sounds like we probably agree on the Hall of Fame. I've always despised the first ballot conversation. It's the dumbest thing in the world to me. A guy is either a Hall of Famer or he's not.
Yeah.
And these writers that hold this, the keys to the gate and hold it above these players' heads who accomplished things that we did only dream of accomplishing. It seems so weird to me. Jack Morris is a great example of it.
Yeah.
That guy pitched some of the most iconic games of my lifetime.
Yeah.
And because he doesn't have the numbers, because his team didn't win enough games, which what a weird thing wins even is.
Yeah, anymore.
Yeah.
Let's abolish those.
All baseball stats are this way. You could do the Pete Rose conversation with ERA.
Yeah.
Well, what a weird stat ERA is, and
exactly
how bad of an indicator it is as to how good of a pitcher a guy is.
Yep.
Wins and losses is the biggest one that you can sit and argue about. But anyway, there's a bunch of them.
Well, and I remember having a conversation with a coach about I think honestly, Ross, that the Hall of Fame is not picture perfect. It's not pure white. I think it is tainted. In fact, I know back before there are guys who have, I don't know if it's elk urine, deer urine, something urine like that, but used back before then to help them. Back then, that was the OG, I guess, of performance enhancing at that time. But
I know what you're talking about.
I cannot remember the name of the guy, and nobody talks about it. I don't know why. Certainly, Joe Morgan isn't talking about it, acting like it's all clean. But I remember reading that and looking at, and I go, well, why? Because again, if you have even the chance of somebody again, not definitive proof of anything, but with Bonds and Clemens, if they have just the lick of a chance, we got to open that door to everybody. And it's not a clean hall, but it's the Hall of Fame.
Andrew, the idea of finding a way to get an advantage over your opponent is again as old as the sun has been rising. Any way to win, and the more competitive you are, the more apt you are to these things. And sometimes it's tricks that are within the book, and sometimes it's not. And I don't want to condone steroid use. I don't think that every player was doing it.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's a fair conversation to look at a guy like Joe Morgan and say, you never did greenies?
Yeah.
Because everybody of your era claims that everybody was doing it.
Oh.
I mean, you know the story of Doc Ellis.
Yeah.
This guy threw a no-hitter on acid.
That was...
Do you know where he got the acid? Have you watched the documentary?
I did, and I feel sorry as a baseball fan. I forgot that.
Yeah, down the right field line in San Diego.
Isn't that crazy?
Okay, there was a girl that everybody knew. Every major leaguer knew. There was this girl that would sit down the right field line, and she was the one that would give all the drugs to the opposing team's players. When you showed up, you'd go down the line, and she'd hand you a handful of whatever. And she handed him the amphetamines, because they all talk about the greenies, and one of the things that he got was a tab of acid.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's one to watch. It's called No, a documentary, but Doc is spelled with a K. Documentary is.
Oh, yep.
His name was Doc Ellis, spelled like a boat dock, DOCK.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, again, these guys have been doing what they weren't supposed to do to get the advantage because they're so competitive for a long, long, long time.
Yeah.
So,
have you seen that documentary, Nolan Ryan documentary?
yes.
I have. I oddly enough just got the chance to, and it just started going halfway through.
Andrew, let's do this. Will you invite me back sometime and we'll just talk about baseball documentaries?
I would love to. I loved baseball docs. You can set them in a whole day. I will do an entire day with it.
Have you seen Battered Bastards of Baseball?
I haven't, and I want to.
Yep, watch that one. It's fantastic. So then you've got Knuckleball.
Yep.
Watch that one.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
I got to rewatch it though.
Knuckleball's a really good one. It's R.A. Dickey.
Yeah, he was just he's an interesting cat.
Interesting cat. Yeah. It's a good word for it, man. Texas dude. All those guys from Texas, man. They're a little bit different.
I wondered, it's like, hey, do I have to go to Texas to get this? Like, what are they drinking down there?
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah. So the baseball documentaries are a whole different breed, but I would come in here and just break those down with you. If you
I'd love to. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's count it booked. But again, ladies and gentlemen, as we go through again, Ross Petersen joining me here on High and Tight.
Camera.
Yeah, I've when there's nobody here, that's that's my buddy.
Yeah, right.
I have to talk to that, and I think people get too much of my face, and that may be something they don't want to. But wrapping things up just a little bit, I did want to move on to kind of obviously the modern day topics right now, obviously with some big contract signings and so forth. And for me, I don't know, this seemed like a really busy off season. Maybe it hasn't been, or maybe just the gravity of the contracts have been there. But I do want to get what broke today and just kind of talk with the Carlos Correa thing you had mentioned.
Okay. I'm sorry.
I mean,
was like, something else happened.
Yeah, no. I looked at it. A buddy of mine, and of course, I know Andrew Downs at Kicks, and that was, I believe, still a huge San Francisco nut.
Oh, huge Giants fan.
Yeah. So condolences, Andrew. I mean, I really.
So think not only losing Carlos Correa, but think about what a week ago they were going to land Aaron Judge.
Yeah, and so many people are putting out there, Judge is going to sign it, putting him in a Giants uniform. And it's like, wow, the cart is before the horse. Yeah. And I think like karma went and said, no.
Have you followed the arson judge thing? Do you know what that is? That ring?
Oh,
you know what that is?
Yeah, a little bit.
I think it was one of the big reporters put out.
Heyman. Heyman did
instead
that.
of Aaron Judge. It said arson judge signing with the Giants, and so now there's the internet has just run with that for weeks now.
Yeah.
So. And then they signed Carlos Correa, but then he apparently fails their physical.
Yeah.
And so now he's signing with the Mets. Is that right? The Mets?
Yeah, the Mets, yeah.
So if the Mets sign him, if you go back to the Verlander signing, they have landed 4 of the top names in the market. And I mean, I'm not even joking. They might be near $1 billion with these contracts.
Yeah. That luxury tax.
Well, the Verlander one was only for like 84.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's got like a high annual value at by the way it looks like it. And so, but I looked at that, and again, what did the Giants see that went, we don't like that?
Will we ever find out?
I don't know. I haven't found out, and I've just been. I guess the whole world's shocked that we have. From what I heard, Steve Cohen was in Malibu, he was in warmer weather than we are here.
Yeah, that's not hard.
He jumped on it right away, obviously keeping tabs on it. Maybe he knew something that we as fans didn't.
I'm trying to rack my brain, Andrew, to think if I can remember a physical holding up a trade like this in my life. I'm sure if I looked at one of the articles, there's got to be some references in there. And then I'm trying to, again, if I can think of one, if we know what the injury or whatever that medical thing was, because my gut tells me we'll never find out. There's HIPAA violations.
Yeah.
I mean, his medical records are his.
If someone finds out, let us know.
Or the Giants were looking for a way out on this contract.
God, and I wonder why.
But I don't think that would be it. I mean, because this really excited their fan base. It seemed like it was a cushion to the whole arson judge thing, and now that you pull the rug out from underneath your fan base again on this one, nobody's feeling sorry for Giants fans, and I know Giants fans. What wasn't yours, you can't feel like you lost. What was never yours, you can't feel like you lost. But But wow, I don't think that they would have just wanted out of this contract and done this.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
So
it's just really cool. I know that Scott Boras said difference of opinion. I mean, how can you trust him half the time with
amen
with what he says?
Yeah.
It's just
that'll be interesting. We'll be following that to see if anything, if we ever find out why or how, and then why the Mets were able or willing to look past that. But a lot of money the Mets have thrown at a problem.
Oh yeah, you know what? I swear they're going to be like the Dodgers. You know, they're going to have a heck of a season. They're get like this year, 100-win season, flame out the first round, you know, kind of thing. I think I can still see that even with Correa and Verlander added.
Being built for the playoffs is different.
Yeah.
And we see it every year. It is not about having the best team. It's not about having the most money between the lines. It's about chemistry, pitching, defense, who's playing the best baseball at the end of the year. As a Yankees fan, I can promise you, man, money helps.
Yeah.
Money does not guarantee you anything. Dodgers and Red Sox have been great examples of that lately.
Yeah. I get 100%. And again, with all this money being thrown around, it's just funny, you know, I remember back, not like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I know that Brian Kenny wrote out a book, and he talked about the detriment of a 10-year plus contract.
Yeah. I know what you're talking. It's on the tip of my tongue. I know Brian. I like Brian Kenny a lot.
Yeah, I have it. I have that very book. I can look at his face, but the title, which is just above his face, is hard to find.
You know, so real quickly on the money, I would say this, Andrew. Something that I've just come around on here in the last 10 years of my fandom. I don't care at all.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
It's like, it's not my money. Yeah. It's not my money that I'm making. It's not my money that's being spent.
Mm-hmm.
So when I see these contracts, because for a long time in my adult life and my fandom, I was like, oh, can you believe the money that's being spent on these contracts? And then all of a sudden one day I woke up, I'm like, wait a minute, why do I give a crap?
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, to Brian Kenny's point, let's look at Albert Pujols' contract. What was
prime example?
Was Albert Pujols, were the Angels getting the value of Albert Pujols in a vacuum in 2017 for their money? Probably not.
Yeah.
But over the course of that 10 years, did the Angels get their money out of Albert Pujols? You're damn right.
Oh yeah, butts and seats, all that.
Absolutely. The number of Pujols jerseys that have been sold, what he means to that organization over that 10-year period, or what ended up being 9. And then, of course, he has the great storybook ending where he comes back to St. Louis. Like, in my mind, that worked out for everybody. Angels made money. Angels won games. Albert Pujols is a Hall of Famer. He comes back. He gets the swan song in St. Louis. Walk away. Good job, guy. Yeah. And everybody won in that. So the 10-year contract on its surface, could you and I sit here in Des Moines as nerds that love the game of baseball and go, well, it's not going to be worth it for them in 10 years. We can.
Yeah.
We can. Here's the deal. A billionaire did his math and figured out he could pay that guy that amount of money and still make money off of him.
Hand and foot.
Right. Amen. Yeah. So I've gotten past that point. Whenever the threat of strikes come up, and fans get all up in a tizzy about it, man, and we're all picking sides, and don't do that. Don't. It's
everybody's it's a two-way street.
They're all making a lot of money. Everybody's making a lot of money, so they'll figure it out, and they'll all get back to the bank just fine. They know the way. They know the way.
They do.
Yep. So I don't worry about people's money. Like the fact that the Mets have spent a shocking amount of money on 4 guys, I don't care about the money. I think it's indicative of things. And I think it indicates that they are in it to win it. That the Mets are. You cannot say that about the Cubs. Yeah. You cannot say that about the Angels. You can't say that about so many large market teams. The Dodgers, they're in it to win it.
Yep.
The Yankees, in it to win it, right? Like, look at the teams that Aaron Judge was never going to not be a Yankee. All he had to do, all his agent had to do was tally up the figures from the other teams and say, okay, here's your best offer.
Yeah.
Somebody wants to pay him $900 quadrillion. What do you got? And the Steinbrenner said, we got 901 quadrillion.
Yeah. Yeah. Looking back, it's like, I think maybe I was just rooting for a little change, the hometown guy coming back into the storyline.
Yeah.
And, but looking back at it, there's never a chance that he was not going to be that. And of course, now he gets the captain title. I think is just, that's the storyline that we all, that we didn't know we wanted.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
The captain thing is weird to me.
It is.
I'm a Yankee fan, but I can be very critical of my own team here.
Yeah. I don't know if any too many other teams that do it like, the Braves. I don't know if they have a captain.
Only other team I know that's ever had a captain was Jason Varitek with the Red Sox, and he wore the C on his jersey.
I remember that.
And I thought it was so corny. I was like, dude, this ain't hockey. Yeah. Captain should be reserved for hockey. And that's always been a thing in hockey.
Yep.
And the Yankees have it's not that the Yankees have always had a captain. That's not a thing.
Yeah.
There have been captains that the Yankees have declared over the years. I think it's a neat thing. It puts him in that kind of rare air, but he was there anyway. I mean, he was going to be in Monument Park. He's going to have his number retired.
Yep.
So speaking of numbers and the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Aaron Judge.
Yeah.
Is Aaron Judge a Hall of Famer?
Oh man, at this point,
because Aaron,
he has an accolade that I think sets him into that conversation for sure.
What's his accolade?
The 62 homers.
What is that?
It's
the Yankees. It's a franchise record.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Or is it the American League?
It's
the American League record. Okay. Okay.
I mean,
yeah, that's something. That's something.
I mean, I'd still like there to be more proven because you guys got guys like Andrew Jones. Sorry, not Andrew. Andrew Jones, who is in jeopardy of. I think I would like to see him there as a Braves fan, but
listen, I love what they did with McGriff.
Yeah,
because Crime Dog's a guy that deserved to be in there, and especially when he would fit into that Jack Morris conversation of like, was he a famous guy? You're damn right he was famous. I grew up with friends in Des Moines, Iowa, whose favorite player was Fred McGriff.
Yeah.
Okay, multiple guys whose favorite player was Fred McGriff. Now you can blame TBS for that, but but this is the conversation we were having, right? If you were famous, you deserve to be in there. Crime Dog should be in there. Andrew Jones, absolutely, man. I bought Chris Williams, my former teammate on the radio, for Christmas one year. I bought him an Andrew Jones signed bat.
Nice.
Yeah, because Andrew Jones was special.
Oh, he is a special dude.
Deserves to be there.
Yeah, his son's looking pretty special too.
There's a whole group of those, dude.
Yeah, I love the the journey of the legends. All those guys. Their kids coming back. Yastrzemski.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm butchering that name, but
Yastrzemski.
Yeah, Yastrzemski.
Biggio, Bichette, and Guerrero in Toronto.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a legacy team there. I mean, might as well keep going with that.
And I know there's a couple other we're missing.
Bobby is like Bobby Witt Jr. No, Bobby Witt Jr.
Bobby Witt Jr. Because Bobby Witt pitched when I was a kid.
And then, gosh, I know that.
Man, I'm old.
Yeah,
I'm old.
You're just knowledgeable,
right?
Very knowledgeable. But it's just that's what I love about it, seeing all those guys, and I think we're getting that first taste. The last couple of years has been the first taste of all that coming back, the name, the legacy, the pedigree, and all that. I think it's cool. I mean, you see that in other sports, but I think it's just something else in baseball.
Andrew, it's all these conversations boil together, man. That the growth of youth sports has grown the talent pool so much. Guys are so much better at a younger age. You see this at the college level. It used to be, when guys showed up on campus, you were going to redshirt. I mean, most of my life, it was like, you got to be a special freshman to play. Now, dudes show up at 17 on a college campus, and they're grown men, and they've got all the skills, and they've got 1,000 at-bats, or 1,000 hours in the trenches, or whatever it is that they're doing. They've been there. You aren't throwing anything new at them, and that that has grown into the major league pool. And I think that, I don't know. I feel like we are on the up with Major League Baseball. The talent is getting better and younger and more exciting, and it's more flamboyant, and just I'm excited about what this next generation of baseball talent's going to do. Because
it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. Last thing here before we officially sign off here with everything. Of course, locally here, a lot of Cubs fans, not happy that you took my guy Dansby, but then again, I've learned not to be attached to a single player and just be attached to the team, and be attached to them if they're done playing. That's where I.
Well, listen, I never stop rooting for guys that if there's a
I'll root still. Yeah, I'll still root for Dansby.
You'll never stop rooting for him, but when he is at the plate against your Braves, you're going to want him to strike out or pop up
every time. Yep. I mean, it's like your numbers up to this point, great. I don't want you to have that against the Braves. Right. Against the Mets, Nationals. Hey, have your.
You always want your guy to be doing a little bit better too.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Whoever fills up, I want him to hit that next level.
But by the way, Dansby's not nearly enough. Cubs played so much better in the second half of the season, and
they did.
And they started to kind of figure it out. And I don't know if it was figure out how to play with each other, because that would be a strange thing to have happen. But
I get the idea there.
They played better in the second half.
Yeah.
Dansby's not the answer.
No, he's not. Neither is Bellinger.
Yeah, they brought in Bellinger also. That's right.
Yeah.
Am I missing anybody else besides Bellinger and Swanson? Because they missed. I thought Rizzo was going to come back to Chicago.
I was all in on that.
And when he landed back with the Yankees, I then thought, well, God, maybe that means the Judge won't be back. Well, then he landed back with the Yankees. Like, oh, the pool's pretty thin now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a Carlos Correa guy. Mets can have him.
Yeah.
In fact, I would have wanted Dansby over Carlos Correa.
I would too.
Yeah.
Because and Correa has had a little injury stuff over the years, and it's just looking at it, who's the guy? It's been, I believe he played all 162 games. Dansby did.
I just think Correa's got that kind of stink on him. He's still, of all of those guys,
like my stuff don't stink. Kind of stink.
Well, and just the Astros cheating scandal.
He had to have been a big ringleader in that.
He's just such an arrogant guy, and I don't know if that's. I don't see that from Dansby. I mean, you got to have confidence to be at that level. So anybody can see that as cockiness, but I'd much rather have him than Correa. But I do think the Cubs are going to struggle again this year. I mean, bullpen's thin, rotation's thin, lineup's weak. Going to be another rough year for him.
Yeah, I think it's just a stepping stone, hopefully, to get back to 2016 status. But I don't know. I think that's just in 10 years.
The 2016 thing, it will be fun in a couple of years to look back at that. And again, I'm not necessarily a Cubs fan, but I have a soft spot in my heart for the Cubs, and I love baseball.
Yeah.
It's a tragic story in the sports realm that the Chicago Cubs got one World Series out of that talent.
Yeah.
It's incredible to look back on it and see what was sitting there and what they had around them, and they got one World Series out of it, and it's a great thing for Cubs that they did that, but man, it was a missed opportunity because the window was so much bigger.
Oh yeah. I mean, and I think if you would have structured things a little bit different, and of course, I think the thing with Chris Bryant, the service time manipulation, I don't know if that maybe rubbed other players the wrong way too. I think every team has done it. I think just the Cubs got highlighted on that more.
It was so public. You're absolutely right, Andrew. I don't know what the impact of that was, and I think that money heals all wounds, and had the Cubs shown up with the right amount of dollars, Chris Bryant probably still would have been playing inside the ivy, but they didn't, and that ship sailed, and so now you can't even look back at 2016. Man, think about that, dude. That was 7 years ago.
Yeah, man. Makes me feel older.
That was 7 years ago that the Cubs were winning the World Series, and so it's a totally different world now. Wilson Contreras is catching for the Cardinals.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
How about that? If you're a Cubs fan, that one's got a sting that he said, watching Albert Pujols hit that home run and run around the bases, I wanted to play for St. Louis.
Yeah. That, I think everyone might have been, even on the fringes, been like, okay, I get it. But then it's like your hero stabbing you in the back kind of thing,
yeah.
And
it's an added twist.
Oh my God. Oh yeah, that's I hope the best for him. I hope the Cardinals get out of the first round, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that ends over. But with that, again, Ross, time's run out. But hey, I really look forward to more conversations. I want to get this going. And
you let me know. I'd come down anytime and chat with you. Next time, if you want to do baseball documentaries,
yeah.
I mean, off the top of my head, I bet we could come up with at least 10 of them.
Yeah.
Or maybe even just movies in general. We could do like documentaries and then other movies. Because have you seen Bingo Long and the Traveling All-Star Show?
I haven't.
That's another one. They were like it's a movie with a bunch of black actors in the early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got Richard Pryor and Billy D. Williams and James Earl Jones.
Love James.
And they basically, it's a telling of a Negro League barnstorming team.
Mm-hmm.
And how they traveled around and would raise money going to different towns and playing baseball.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun. Brewster's Millions.
I've heard of it, haven't got it. Yeah.
Richard Pryor and John Candy.
And
there's a lot of interesting stories with that. I learned at about the age of 4 or 5 what an asset was because of that show. Yeah.
Well,
true story.
There you go. I'm going to have to get in on that. Well, definitely. I will definitely have you on again. We'll do a whole thing. We'll do a whole series.
Come down. I'll try to I'll get better at looking that way next time.
Me too. But for right now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to sign off. Thanks so much for tuning in. Again, if you get the chance, like, subscribe, share the word. We'll post this up on our website, iabaseball.com. You'll be able to catch that there archived as well. But Ross, appreciate it, man.
Thank you, buddy. Thanks for having me here. Take care, man.
And for everyone out there, thanks for tuning in. Have a safe holiday, and we'll see you later.